I stayed silent while my daughter-in-law mocked me online. She posted a video of me fumbling with a recipe in their kitchen, editing it to make me look like a bumbling old fool. Her followers laughed in the comments, calling me out of touch. I didn't respond publicly. Instead, I watched as her father, Robert, noticed everything. He messaged me privately one evening, saying he'd seen the clip and knew she'd filmed me without asking. Quietly, he became my ally, sharing that she often encouraged her audience to ridicule family members for views. He promised to help if I needed it, and that gave me the first spark of resolve. My name is Harold Mason. I'm 64 years old now, but I've spent the better part of the last 2 decades carrying my family on my back, both literally and figuratively. It started when my son, David, met his wife, Elena, back in our hometown near Denver. They were young, ambitious, and full of dreams about turning their passion for cooking into something big. David had always been the practical one, following in my footsteps with a steady job at a local engineering firm, but Elena brought the spark, the endless energy for social media and content creation. She convinced him that their future lay in videos of home-cooked meals, quirky recipes, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of their life. I saw potential in them, or at least I wanted to believe in it, so I stepped in to make it happen. It began with their first house. They found a modest place in the suburbs of Denver, a 2-story colonial with a decent kitchen that Elena insisted was perfect for filming. The down payment was steep, more than they could swing on David's salary alone. Elena was already posting clips on her channel, building a small following, but the income from sponsorships was sporadic at best. I didn't hesitate. I pulled from my savings, the nest egg I'd built over years of managing a hardware supply business that I'd started from scratch after my wife passed away a decade earlier. That business had been my lifeline, providing steady revenue and a sense of purpose. But family came first. I wired them the money for the down payment and co-signed the mortgage, ensuring they had a stable base to launch from. Once they settled in, the requests kept coming. The kitchen needed renovations to make it camera-ready. Elena wanted professional lighting, marble countertops for that aesthetic appeal, and custom cabinets to store their growing collection of props and ingredients. David called me one evening, his voice tentative but hopeful. "Dad, this could be huge. The videos are getting traction, people love our story." I agreed to fund it. I hired contractors I trusted, oversaw the project remotely when I couldn't be there in person, and covered the costs that ballooned from $20,000 to nearly $50,000 with unexpected permits and upgrades. Watching the before and after photos they sent, I felt a swell of pride. This was their dream, and I was making it real. But it didn't stop at the house. Their big idea was a food truck venture, a mobile restaurant that would serve fusion dishes inspired by Elena's heritage and David's classic American twists. They named it Mason's Roadside Bites, tying it to the family legacy without asking my permission first. To get it off the ground, they needed capital for the truck itself, permits, equipment, and initial inventory. Elena's channel had grown to a few thousand subscribers by then, enough for minor ad revenue, but not nearly sufficient for a business launch. David approached me during a family dinner, laying out spreadsheets and projections. "We've got the content side covered," he said. "The videos will drive customers straight to the truck." Elena nodded enthusiastically, showing me mock-ups of their branding. I believed them. Or maybe I just wanted to keep the family close, to see David succeed where I'd always encouraged him to. I took out a line of credit against my business, liquidated some investments, and fronted $150,000 for the venture. That covered the custom-built truck with its vibrant wraps, the commercial kitchen setup inside, and even marketing materials like flyers and social media boosts. They hit the road. Parking at festivals and markets around Denver, while Elena filmed every step, the sourcing of ingredients, the chaotic prep sessions, the first customer reactions. Her audience ate it up, literally and figuratively. Subscribers climbed into the tens of thousands, and the truck started turning a profit, albeit a slim one after expenses. Through it all, I stayed in the background. I visited occasionally, helping with repairs on the truck or advising on inventory management based on my business experience. They credited me in passing on their channel. Shout out to Grandpa Harold for the support. But it was clear the spotlight was theirs. I didn't mind. Seeing David smile as he plated dishes, watching Elena light up during live streams, it made the sacrifices worthwhile. I'd visit their home, share meals, and listen to their plans for expansion. They talked about franchising, maybe even a brick-and-mortar spot in Austin, where Elena had family roots. I nodded along, offering quiet encouragement and, when needed, more financial backing for equipment upgrades or licensing fees. Years passed like this. My business kept humming, but a larger chunk of my resources funneled into their world. I covered unexpected costs, like when the truck broke down during a busy season and repairs ate into their savings. Or when Elena decided to hire a videographer to professionalize their content, insisting it was an investment in growth. David would call, apologetic but urgent, "Dad, we need a bridge loan, just until the next sponsor deal." I'd send the money, trusting their vision. By the time Elena's channel hit 100,000 followers, their food truck was a local staple, and they were pitching ideas for merchandise and collaborations. I felt like the steady anchor in their whirlwind. Looking back, I see how it shaped us. They grew bolder, more dependent, while I grew quieter, content with the role of provider. But that video, the one where Elena turned the camera on me uninvited, cracked something open. It wasn't just mockery, it exposed the imbalance I'd ignored for so long. Still, I held my tongue, focusing on the bigger picture. My support had built their empire, and now, with Robert's quiet alliance, I started to see a path forward that didn't involve endless giving. After that humiliating video surfaced, I felt a deep sting, but I pushed it down. The clip showed me in their kitchen, trying to help with a simple stir-fry, but Elena had edited it to highlight every pause and fumble, adding captions like, "When Boomer Dad tries to cook modern." Her followers piled on with emojis and comments about outdated recipes and generational clashes. It spread quickly, racking up views while I sat in my quiet home office, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to call David, demand she take it down, but I knew that would only fuel more content. Instead, I chose silence as my shield. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and decided to channel the anger into something constructive. That night, I started a journal, not some emotional diary, but a methodical record of facts. It became my anchor, a way to process without reacting impulsively. The journal began simply, a bound notebook from my desk drawer, dated entries in neat handwriting. I wrote about the video first, noting the upload time, the exact wording in the description, and how Elena tagged it with family hashtags that included my name without permission. I transcribed key comments, especially those she liked or replied to, building a timeline of the mockery. But I didn't stop there. I realized this wasn't isolated, it was part of a pattern. So, I expanded my efforts to collect evidence, pulling together years of interactions that showed the full scope of their reliance on me, and now, their disregard. Emails came first. I dug into my inbox, sorting through threads from the past 5 years. There were dozens from David about the house purchase. "Dad, the inspection came back clean, can you approve the wire today?" Followed by my confirmations and bank alerts for the transfers. Elena's messages were lighter, often with video links. "Harold, check this out. Your tip on the marinade worked wonders." But buried deeper were the casual asks. Like the one about the kitchen Reno, "We found this amazing tile, $5K, but it'll make the shoots pop. Thoughts?" I printed them all, highlighting amounts and dates, attaching bank statements as proof. The statements showed the outflow: $80,000 for the house down payment in 2018, $47,000 for renovations in 2019, $150,000 for the food truck in 2020, plus smaller hits like $10,000 for a new generator after a storm damaged the truck. Each one tied back to their ventures, their content creation as the supposed return on investment. Screenshots followed. I scrolled through their channel archives, capturing posts where they referenced my help without crediting the scale of it. One video from last year showed David thanking the family for backing their dream start, but the comments revealed fans assuming it was a small loan from in-laws, not the lifeblood of their operation. I screenshotted Elena's stories too, those quick clips of the truck in action, overlaid with text like, "Grateful for the support that got us here." And noted how they glossed over my role. Then came the recorded conversations. I'd always been cautious with my phone, but now I enabled voice memos during calls. One from 2 months ago, David outlining their expansion plans to Austin, casually mentioning, "We couldn't have done the truck without your push, Dad." Elena chimed in off mic, laughing about a funny outtake with me that she planned to post. I timestamped it all, cross-referencing with email chains to show context. Every joke in their content got documented too. There was the skit where they portrayed a clueless investor based on my advice about permits, clearly me, though they denied it. I noted the upload date, viewer count, and engagement metrics from their analytics page, which David had once shared access to in a moment of transparency. Another was a poll: should we let Grandpa guest star? Face with tears of joy, with options mocking senior mishaps. I saved the results, showing how it drove interaction. My journal grew thick, pages filled with dates, quotes, and attachments. I organized it chronologically, creating sections: financial support, content usage, personal interactions. It wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity. I reviewed it nightly, ensuring nothing was emotional, just facts that painted the picture of generosity met with exploitation. This process helped me suppress the emotions bubbling up. Hurt turned to resolve. I'd replay the video in my mind, feeling the embarrassment, but then flip to a journal page and see the balance: what I'd given versus what I'd endured. Robert, Elena's father, checked in sporadically during this time, his messages a quiet encouragement. "Hang in there, Harold. I've got your back on this." He didn't pry, but his words reminded me I wasn't alone. By the end of the first month, my evidence file was robust, a digital folder on an external drive, backed up twice. I consulted a lawyer quietly, just to understand my options, but I held off on action. Rushing would undo everything. Instead, I waited for their next move, journal in hand, ready to respond with precision rather than pain. When David and Elena started hinting that it was time to pass the torch, I recognized the shift immediately. It came during a routine video call, their faces bright on my screen as they sat in the food truck's cab after a successful market day. David leaned in, his tone measured. "Dad, you've done so much for us. The truck's thriving, the channel's at 150,000 followers now. Maybe it's time we take the reins fully, transfer the business rights, make it official under our names." Elena nodded, her smile polished like one of her on-camera poses. "It'd be a family legacy, Harold. You deserve to step back and enjoy." They framed it as gratitude, but I heard the undercurrent: control, without the ongoing oversight from me. The restaurant, really the food truck brand they'd built with my funds, was still tied to my original investments, the LLC I'd set up to protect it. Transferring rights meant handing over equity, decisions, everything. I didn't argue. Suppressing the unease, I agreed to meet on Sunday to discuss details. "Sounds fair," I said calmly. "Let's hash it out in person." They seemed relieved, promising to bring proposals and projections. The call ended with Elena blowing a kiss to the camera, but as soon as I hung up, I moved. It was Friday morning, and I had no intention of walking into that meeting unprepared. My lawyer, Tom Riley, whom I'd consulted during my evidence-gathering phase, was already on speed dial. We'd talked options weeks earlier, and now it was time to act. I drove to his office in downtown Denver, the autumn leaves crunching under my tires, my journal tucked in my briefcase like a talisman. Tom's office was a no-nonsense space, walls lined with law books and a view of the Rockies. He greeted me with a firm handshake, no small talk. "Harold, you're wise to move now. Let's structure this to protect you." We outlined the plan, established the Mason Community Trust. It wouldn't be a simple will, this was a living trust, irrevocable once set up, with assets moved in immediately. The beneficiary? A charitable organization I'd long supported, a local food bank network that helped families in need, echoing the community spirit I'd always valued in my business. After my death, the trust's holdings would fund scholarships and meal programs, not line pockets. But during my lifetime, I retained control as trustee, with full discretion over operations. The assets poured in methodically. First, the business holdings, the LLC for Mason's Roadside Bites, including the truck's title, intellectual property like the branding and recipes I'd co-developed, and remaining equity from my initial investments. Valued at over $300,000 now, thanks to their growth. Then personal contributions, the outstanding balance on the house mortgage I'd co-signed, about $120,000, shifted into the trust as a lien, meaning any transfer would require my approval. Bank accounts tied to the venture, investment portfolios I'd liquidated partially for their sake, all funneled in. Tom drafted the documents swiftly, citing my journal entries as context for the urgency without delving into family drama. "This keeps everything beyond their reach," he explained. "They can't contest it easily, and it aligns with your values." By midday, it was done. I signed the final pages in Tom's conference room, the notary stamping each one with finality. The trust was live, assets retitled under its name. I felt a weight lift, not relief exactly, but empowerment. Driving home, I stopped at a coffee shop and updated my journal, entry dated Friday, detailing the meeting, asset list, and Tom's advice. No regrets clouded it, this was preservation, not punishment. They thought Sunday's talk would seal their takeover, but I'd already redrawn the lines. The trust ensured the brand's future stayed in my hands, with charitable intent as the safeguard. If they pushed for transfer, I'd reveal the new structure politely, watching their reactions for my records. That evening, Robert called. Elena's father had a way of checking in at pivotal moments, his voice steady over the line. "Harold, I hear about the meeting. Be careful, they're ambitious." I appreciated his caution but kept details light. His alliance grew stronger in these quiet exchanges, a counterbalance to the pressure building from David and Elena. I prepared for Sunday by reviewing projections they'd emailed, optimistic numbers that assumed my full handover. My response would pivot everything. The trust wasn't just legal armor, it was my statement that the torch stayed lit on my terms, fueling something bigger than their channel's glow. To test David and Elena's true intentions, I began playing forgetful in subtle ways. It started the day after establishing the trust, during a casual lunch at their home. I'd arrived early, journal tucked away, and when Elena asked about the Sunday meeting schedule, I feigned confusion. "Sunday? Is that for the truck's maintenance check?" She exchanged a glance with David, who repeated the details slowly, as if speaking to a child. I nodded along, asking the same question about the agenda twice within minutes, once over appetizers, again while clearing plates. "What time did you say we'd start again?" Their patience thinned visibly. Elena's smile tightened, and David suggested I jot it down. I pretended to fumble for my phone, buying time to observe. It was a calculated act, drawing from my evidence collection to gauge their reactions without tipping my hand. Over the next few days, I amplified it. During a call about inventory for the truck, I forgot a supplier's name I'd recommended months earlier, prompting David to sigh and explain it anew. "Dad, it's the one from last quarter, the organic produce guy." I apologized profusely, then circled back with the same query in a follow-up text. Elena's responses grew clipped in their group chat, emojis fewer and farther between. The real insight came when I overheard them behind closed doors. I'd stopped by unannounced one afternoon, claiming I'd brought tools for a minor repair on the truck parked in their driveway. As I lingered in the hallway, pretending to check emails, their voices carried from the office, muffled but clear. Mental evaluation might be the way, David said, his tone pragmatic. He's slipping, asking the same things over and over. If we get a doctor's note, guardianship could speed this up. Elena agreed, her voice animated. Exactly. Accelerate his removal from decisions. The trust talk on Sunday, we push for transfer, say it's for his own good. Fans love the caring family angle, it'll boost views. They discussed logistics, contacting a family lawyer, staging a concerned video update without naming me directly. Call it when elders need help, keep it vague, she added. My heart sank, but I stayed composed, slipping out quietly before they noticed. Back home, I added the details to my journal, approximate time, key phrases transcribed from memory, cross-referenced with the recent, forgetful, interactions. It confirmed what I'd suspected, their ambition masked as concern, aiming to sideline me entirely. That same evening, Robert reached out privately. Elena's father had become a steady presence in my phone, his messages timed like clockwork after tense family moments. This time, it was a call. Harold, can we talk honestly? Meet for coffee tomorrow? I agreed, meeting him at a quiet diner on the edge of Denver, away from prying eyes. Robert, a retired accountant in his late 60s with a no-nonsense demeanor, stirred his black coffee as we settled into a booth. He looked weary, lines etched deeper around his eyes. I've been watching this unfold, he started. Elena's channel, it's her world now. But you and I, we're the ones paying the price. He confessed they'd set him up in videos too. It began small, a clip of him struggling with a smartphone app during a visit, edited to poke fun at tech-challenged dads. Comments rolled in, mocking his generation, and Elena leaned into it for engagement. She filmed me without asking, just like you, Robert said. Encouraged the audience to chime in, share your boomer parent fails. It got 50,000 views, but it stung. I confronted her privately, she called it harmless fun for the brand. He pulled out his phone, showing screenshots of the post and his unanswered texts to her afterward. More damning were the patterns. Elena had done similar with other relatives, turning family quirks into content fodder to grow her following. They think it's strategy, he continued. David backs her fully. But I've seen the emails, the ones where they plan exposés on supportive folks like us to seem relatable. Robert's alliance deepened in that conversation. He shared a folder of his own evidence, timestamps from Elena's posts involving him, bank records of small loans she'd borrowed for equipment and never repaid. She's my daughter, Harold, but this crossed a line. If they push for that meeting, document everything. I'll back you if it comes to it. We parted with a handshake, his quiet resolve mirroring my own. Driving home, I felt validated, not vindicated yet, but armed. The forgetful ploy had exposed their guardianship plot, and Robert's honesty closed another loop in my evidence. Sunday loomed, but now I approached it with clarity. Their intentions were self-serving, and my preparations would counter them step by step. The Sunday meeting arrived under a crisp Denver sky. But inside their home, the air felt charged. David and Elena had set up in the dining room, which they'd transformed into a makeshift boardroom, laptop open with spreadsheets, fresh coffee steaming, and a stack of printed proposals on the table. They greeted me warmly, Elena hugging me at the door with her usual enthusiasm. Harold, so glad you're here. This is going to be exciting. David pulled out a chair, his smile confident. I nodded, settling in with my briefcase, journal notes fresh in my mind from the morning review. Robert had texted encouragement earlier, stay steady. You've got this. I appreciated it, but this was my moment to redirect the narrative they'd scripted. They launched right in, expecting deference. David started with the pitch. As we talked, Dad, the brand's ready for full handover. Mason's Roadside Bites as the beloved family restaurant in Austin, brick and mortar, Elena's family ties there make it perfect. He slid over glossy mock-ups, a storefront rendering with warm lighting, menu boards featuring their fusion dishes, and projected revenue charts climbing to 6 figures. Elena chimed in, her eyes bright. We've lined up investors, permits in process. Transferring rights means you retire gracefully, we handle operations, you get equity shares as a silent partner. It was polished, tying into their channel's storyline of generational success. They assumed I'd sign off, perhaps tear up at the legacy talk. But I had other plans. Instead of agreeing, I leaned forward calmly. I've given this a lot of thought. Their expressions shifted, David's brow furrowed slightly, Elena's smile held but stiffened. The brand is relocating to Santa Fe. Pauses hung in the air as I continued. I've already opened a pop-up there, partnering with the local food bank. It launches next month, community events, donations from proceeds, fresh start aligned with the Trust One setup. I watched their faces, surprise, then calculation. David blinked. Santa Fe? But we planned Austin, our investors. Elena interjected, the audience expects Austin, it's in our videos. I nodded sympathetically. Expectations change. This honors the roots, community first, like I always intended. Before they could recover, I signaled to the doorway. Tom Riley, my lawyer, entered quietly, carrying a slim envelope. He introduced himself briefly, then handed it across the table. Mr. and Mrs. Mason, this is a cease and desist letter regarding access to the business accounts and intellectual property. David's hand froze mid-reach. What? Dad, this is a family meeting. Tom explained neutrally, the Mason Community Trust now holds the assets. Unauthorized access attempts violate terms. This formalizes boundaries. Elena scanned the document, her color draining. It cited specifics from my evidence, timestamps of their channel posts using brand elements without updated permissions, emails requesting funds post-trust setup. No accusations, just facts enforcing the structure I'd put in place Friday. The room tensed as they processed it. David pushed back his chair. This isn't what we discussed. The torch, your retirement. I met his gaze steadily. The torch stays lit on my terms. Santa Fe builds something lasting, beyond content cycles. Elena's phone buzzed, a notification, perhaps from a follower, but she ignored it, focusing on the letter. That's when the door opened again. In walked Marcus Hale, the investor they'd courted for months. Tall, sharp-suited, he was the one they'd bragged about in calls, our big backer for Austin. They thought he was theirs, secured through Elena's networking videos where she'd name-dropped him for clout. Marcus nodded to me first. Harold, good to see you. Shock rippled across their faces. He took a seat, addressing them directly. The deal's conditional, as I mentioned in our last call. Tied to the lifetime trust, your father-in-law's vision. Santa Fe aligns, Austin doesn't, given the relocation. David stammered, but we shook on it, emails, everything. Marcus pulled out his tablet, showing the agreement draft. Contingent on trust approval, which Harold controls as trustee. I respect that structure, it ensures stability. Elena tried to pivot. We can adjust, film the transition for the channel. But Marcus shook his head. No changes. Funding flows to the pop-up, food bank partnership included. It's a solid model. The meeting wrapped shortly after. They sat stunned as Tom recapped the cease and desist implications, no more using trust-held IP in videos without license. I stood, offering a closing note. This isn't the end, it's a new direction. Join the Santa Fe venture if it fits. Driving away, I felt the pivot's weight. Their Austin dream crumbled under the trust's framework, the investor's loyalty revealed as mine all along, quietly secured during my preparations. Robert called later, heard it went well. Proud of you. My journal entry that night captured it all, reactions, documents exchanged, the shift from their control to my design. The finale approached, but this meeting marked the turning point. The finale turned on them swiftly after the meeting. David and Elena's channel released an exposé video the next day, framing the trust and relocation as my stubborn interference in their family dream. Elena narrated dramatically, showing blurred clips of the dining room discussion and old photos of the truck, implying betrayal. When support turns to control, she captioned it, urging viewers to share their stories of elder meddling. Comments exploded, some sympathizing, others questioning the narrative. But the platform flagged it within hours for privacy violations. Automated systems detected unauthorized use of my likeness from the earlier mockery video, plus unpermitted business references tied to the trust's IP. The video went private, then demonetized, with a warning notice to their account. Elena messaged me furiously, "This is your doing?" I didn't reply, adding the takedown email to my journal. Then Robert stepped forward publicly. Elena's father posted a statement on his own social media, a simple text overlay on a family photo, apologies to Harold Mason for the pain caused by content involving him. Family first, not views. Privately, he forwarded me messages from a producer he'd contacted through old connections. The exchanges detailed staged scenes, foolish father-in-law bits, edit for laughs, get Harold fumbling props. Timestamps matched my evidence, including the kitchen video and clueless investor skit. It completed the circle, proof of orchestration, from mockery to the exposé, all for engagement. Robert's move amplified the backlash. Their followers turned, calling out the exploitation. Faced with the mounting evidence and platform scrutiny, David and Elena backed down. A week later, they proposed mediation through a neutral family counselor, dropping guardianship threats entirely. "Let's resolve this properly," David's email read. It was exactly what I'd aimed for, dialogue on equal terms, preserving the brand under the trust while mending what could be mended. I agreed, journal closed but ready. The support I'd given built their world, now, boundaries rebuilt mine.